little bit of some of Kevin's new stuff, actually. We'll play that for a little bit. I think it's booted people. I'm not exactly sure why. What's up? Hey, I get the push notifications, so that means everybody got it. What's up, Afternoon.
Hello.
Everybody. Can y'all hear the tunes through my speakers here? Kev will recognize this one. Let's see. Okay, stream is on. In case anybody missed it, at least on my agenda, my major thing for the week is we have releases from Cognition as of like 20 minutes ago, and releases from Cursor this morning. But we definitely have a lot to other sort of performance models and that. But yeah, how's everybody doing?
This one's pretty big news.
Oh,
Models coming out.
yeah, actually, yeah, no, I think you're right. And yeah, there's something like
Yeah, another agent, sub-agent cluster.
well, yeah, well, it's actually really interesting. I should actually share like my whole screen yes, there's a weekly agent, but they also own the cluster. But the question is, how am I going to get it into the same window? Always prepared. Got it. That's my window management. Horrible forever. Such as it is. Yeah, so I think that's the major news for the week. Trapped in AWS config? Yes, us too. Except for when we're going, we're going to be heading into GCP lane, so I may be calling you up about the GPUs and the GPUs. Yeah, what up with you? Don't you think? Very true. Yeah, by the way, because I'm plugging your data set. Let's swap this over to the real which I someday will figure out a way to let you guys see. Little mysterious walking around sort of thing. Let's see. Okay, cool. So I have the great. I have the other screen playing on that. So if I share it here, then we should also get it. So let's do that. Can I do my whole screen, please? Okay, I probably should pick. Let me pick a different thing to put in into into the view. Although I do want to just quickly go over or like touch on what the interfaces are. So this is like your traditional cursor, right? If anybody has used that application before, it might be familiar. Never play my. You gotta send me your music, Baco. Then I'll play it. I'm down. But as you can see, we have. I have multiple agents, and then when I give it a prompt, I don't know if it'll pop up here. Yeah, probably not. But when you prompt now, especially if you're over in agent mode, because you can switch between editor and agents, you can also do, you can have it run multiple at the same time. So I just was like, hey, let's throw this at Composer and Sonnet and GPT-5 all at the same time, and then pick which one is the best. And they also do work tree handling and stuff like that for you too, which is kind of nice. So it's sort of like they took a lot of the stuff from all those orchestrators everybody's hearing about, like conductor.build and that frickin' one that raised like 100 million on a sculptor, that's what it was, and just ripped all the features out of those and put them in Cursor. So good luck, everybody. The more the merrier, I suppose.
Cursor is not dead yet, it would appear.
It's not. I think it's actually a very like interesting thing that everybody's, you know, there's a contingent of companies that are moving to the terminal paradigm, and then the IDEs seem to be sort of like scrambling for what else they can do. Oh, of course, great.
Welcome, Octavia.
Oh, what up? How's it going? The thing for windsurf. So yeah, I think it's an interesting question of trying to figure out what the role of the IDE is. Oh shoot! What up, Swix? You made it. I figured I poked this guy because I know his company has a release, which we were just touching on. What's up, buddy? How you doing?
Hey, what's up? Yeah, I wasn't sure if I was gonna make it because we were very unsure if we are gonna ship today.
Yeah, I saw this release came out like 5 minutes ago, basically. So I appreciate you going out of your way to make it here.
Yeah, just hanging out. You know, you've been like a big contributor to our Discord, so I figured I gotta return the favor, right?
Oh, that is very thoughtful of you. I appreciate that. And I think this one is a good one to pick, considering we were just sort of comparing the two in terms of...
Yeah, I mean, I'm curious the vibes, you know, like this is a neutral space. Like, yeah, we'll just run cursor and see 1.5 next to each other, see what you get.
That's the idea,
yeah.
I think. I might just throw them at each other. I want to make sure...
So, like, I really forced the team to launch on the same day because we knew Cheetah was coming.
Sure.
We actually benchmarked everything. We think, depends on the benchmark, but we're at least equal, sometimes slightly better, sometimes slightly worse with Cheetah. What do you call it, you know, Composer, but it's something like 3x faster. So
make sure that this is not going to leak something everywhere. The struggle of live demo.
Hey, Swix. Can you, Swix, I know who you are, and I'm sure that Yikes does, but can you give us a background and tell us about this announcement, please?
Oh, sure. I was part of the SUI 1.5 team. I work at Cognition. I also organize the AI Engineer Conference and Latent Space. Maybe I can put it. I can put the link in the chat for this Discord.
Yeah, for sure.
If that helps.
Mm-hmm. That would totally work. Let me do.
Hi.
Hi.
Yeah, these are.
Wait.
I guess I should probably introduce everybody to everybody. We have Al and Octavia, and I think Tara's up here too. We've all been working on an upcoming product release and been doing like basically the secondary AI in action stuff. And then for anybody on the team who's not familiar with Swix, as you mentioned, he's prolific. Previously, like kind of a React guy, but now kind of an AI guy and runs AI engineer and all that good stuff. So.
Yeah. And I think like Yikes semi-doxed himself at AIE.
Oh, I do all the time. It's it is. It's mostly the aesthetic rather than the actual OPSEC, I guess that I'm going for.
All right.
But you know, we do what we can, at least in this day and age. Lord knows. Okay, let's see. All right, I got him up and running, so we'll throw some dueling banjos at him. But I guess I should detour a little bit here. I know Alan, Octavia, you guys had grabbed some stuff that you thought was particularly interesting. Did either of you want to dig in on anything in particular while I get this thing going?
Yeah, I spent the week very deep in the world of subagents. Got really fed up with Claude not using the correct subagents when I told it to. So you can tell it to, like, run a subagent with blank, and it just says that it's doing it, but then turns out that it's actually running a completely different model. So spent the week mostly developing a whole bunch of scripting to use the CLI to bypass that, which allowed me to integrate Gemini into my workflow, which was kind of interesting. So very interested in seeing some new tools to try to add into that workflow. Octavia, we had some news in the world of science this week. Do you want to fill us in?
Yeah, basically Alex helped us stumble into a paper that is finally coming out of the witch closet. Is making AI come out of the witch closet as magic. So yeah, basically we saw a paper that says that LLMs are injective, which means that you can quite securely recover the prompt from the generated text. And they did it. I mean, they did like they investigated with collisions, string collisions. Like, is it possible for two different prompts to generate the same thing? And they were not able to do that reliably, experimentally.
Title of the paper, perchance, so I can pull it up.
Oh yeah. I think it's literally LLMs are injective functions or something.
Injective. Oh yeah, Google's completing injective and hence invertible is what I'm getting here. Yeah.
Yeah, that's like a really cool implication for code gen tools, because I think now you have like a not completely, like we still have to build the tool itself, but because it's invertible, it means that we can, when we're storing the, like for instance, I sometimes, I'll like be in cursor and I'll like pause the generation, right? Mid running. So you can actually recover what was meant to be generated if you like accidentally hit stop, That's one thing. And I think the interpretability now is like a huge, thing that we can do because they show that it's convertible. So yeah, let me pull in the full.
I got a stream going on here on the efficient. So the thing jumping out to me is efficiently reconstructs the exact input text from hidden activations. So like the weight activations of the hidden layer are enough to go on to reconstruct the original prompt, is what I'm sort of getting out of that.
Basically, yes. Which, I mean, obviously there's privacy and IP implications here, which is like you can't really sanitize the intermediate embeddings because they're already, you need them in order to decode into the generated text, but also you can use them to decode into the original prompt. You know what I mean? Like, but there's an opportunity of doing like provable privacy filters and cryptographic abstractions on top of it. So like, you can build some like cryptographically secure stuff on, such that you can still generate the text, but like not recover the prompt. If you're concerned that if there's like PII in the prompt or something, you know what I mean? So yeah, so there's like a challenge and an opportunity, or rather the obstacle is the way, as we say it in skepticism.
at least for me.
So just to clarify, the prompt can be recovered from the output, meaning that the prompt to output flow is like loosely a deterministic thing, and if you tweak the prompt slightly, you're getting like
Yeah.
almost a half table.
And we were like halfway correct. We were halfway there with like from an empirical standpoint, like when Mira Murati's team were like, well, like all this non-determinism and like LM inference usually is just a bug. It's actually just a bug in the GPU like drivers, like on the NVIDIA drivers. It's not actually like supposed to be like that. So here's all the bugs that we found, so there was just like, a matter of like, okay, what was the decoding process, like going from the activation, like midstream embeddings into the final, tokens. Is that non-deterministic? And based on these experimental setups, it seems like it's not. And like in the back end, what I think is going on, I haven't like looked at it really carefully because literally we were talking about it yesterday. But what I think is happening is like because of all that human in the loop reinforcement learning that we were talking about last week, with that introduces type bias into the fine tuning process, where the LLM just like tends to learn more of the same type of stuff and type of answers. I think that's what is starting to make it deterministic. So maybe like earlier models were not deterministic, but it looks like these ones are. Question mark. Yeah, I mean it's an archive paper. It's not like peer reviewed yet.
Yes.
Yet, but like I do think that this is like an exciting direction to look into.
I think I saw something earlier today. I was like, can I tie this back into windsurf somehow? I'm wondering if I don't know if you saw it too. There was like a post from Sarah Cheng on X, which I guess I'll pull up here on our browser, about an interesting way that I've somewhat been adopting to read papers just in general, I guess on the topic of reading papers and how to do it, which hopefully might be of interest to Swix here, because she makes, partially it's Eugene, who is one of our regular attendees over at the Latent Space stuff. His stuff is generally worth checking out. It's very like thorough. And interestingly, what Sarah is doing for this paper is using the code maps feature of windsurf to help her navigate a paper. Did you end up seeing that this morning, Swix? I'm curious.
I mean, yeah, we are very good friends. Yeah, Codemaps is unlaunched. That's why you won't find anything about it apart from some docs that we threw up. But it's pretty good. It's pretty good. Yeah. We threw out those docs after certain people started talking about it. The idea is that it's supposed to be soft launch. We wanted to get it to customers to like get feedback, and so it wasn't launched yet externally.
Honestly, it's like one of the most, despite not being actually launched, I guess, and perhaps I'll be more excited when it does. But yeah, as soon as I saw it, it's the same reaction that I had to Excel web sets, where I'm like, oh, I really want this feature because you could probably do some really cool stuff with it.
For what it's worth, you could use it now. It's just
I was just gonna go try it actually. I have it on my little.
So like. I have a few framings for this. Like Codemaps is basically, it's meant for large code bases, but I think small is fine too. It's just obviously the benefit scales with larger code bases. But basically, kind of AI reorganizing just in time your code base so that you can sort of navigate better, right? Like literally, it's in the name of a map. And what's great is that actually it's focused on human code base understanding rather than AI or agent, meaning that like this is meant for your hardest task, the one that you don't trust in LLM.
Yeah.
So the idea is that it helps you read the code base, and then you can decide what to prompt. You can decide if you want to manually edit, but we want to make humans better and not just replace humans.
No, I think that's actually super. Yeah, super important to me. So, like, I guess my sort of my thesis on the whole coding agent meta was like, at some point, you want to be able to have 3 or 4 of these things running and like actually get results, and you want to be able to use them like together on a team without crashing your agents into each other. And at least for me, all of the solutions that I've found in order to do that right now are not. I don't think CodeGen agents are well suited in terms of how their harnesses are generally currently designed for either of those tasks. But I think that things agents can do, such as produce human readable representations of large and complex code bases. This is probably like not a good example because it's just a little tiny one. And I was trying to see if I could actually get it to do the paper. Although, I have an idea I might try. Because I have a few other papers in a folder that I might be able to get it to navigate me through. But the larger point being, I think that being yes, generating code is good. Generating code that works is also good, but the being able to build long-term maintainable software products on a team in tandem with other people that you can actually like read and reason about is I think is like, to me, like a pretty large unsolved problem, and I don't think it gets solved by like just making the CodeGen agent harness better. I think it gets solved by applying things like these, such like the code maps, and doing things like taking ASTs and doing like some semantic embedding alongside the code to sort of allow for these other intermediate representations that people can actually read. Because I don't. If you are using multiple CodeGen agents in tandem simultaneously, I don't think you should read your code, actually. I think that you will bottleneck your pipeline very hard if what you try to do is read and understand all of your code, but you still need to have a code base that is readable that you understand. So sort of bridging that gap is, I think, an unsolved problem, and like something that we are trying to do with our products at some point. But yeah, I think things like code maps are something that is just of interest to me in general on the topic.
Yeah, that I'm excited, and I think that's one of the things that like strengthens code maps. Like I think building something like code maps is like totally like theoretically correct and this is the
I
way
do love
also
that.
theoretically.
Yeah, when it's theoretically optimal, right? That's what we're going for. Let's see if I can find my little papers repo here and throw this at the thing. Oh yeah, this will be a good one. I think. But yeah, how much do you know, or are you allowed to share about how code maps works? Like, is there anything like interesting in terms of like, at least what I'm as a generally graph-pilled person, I'm curious if there's any usage of ASTs or other sort of graph structures to try and map things out for the model in advance.
Honestly, I actually no. I could know. I just haven't spent the time because I've been working on the
Right.
other launches.
Yeah.
This is the immediate next launch, so now I'm going to wrap up. Simple answer is I don't know, but not because it's secret. It's just because I'm busy.
Well, yeah, because you had a launch of a brand new product that you just did like 30 minutes ago, so you got a few things to do here and there, right? I get it. No, totally.
No, but like yeah, I mean so this was sort of the pet project of the CTO. Yeah, they're very they were very much building on the existing work done by SweetGrep, which is what we're calling it now. The
Right,
idea
that's
that
the
you
OSS
want
release,
it
right?
pre. Huh?
Was SweetGrep the open source one that's grepping, that's like only for agentic grepping? kind of thing. Am I remembering that right? Or
Yeah, it's yes, except it's not open source.
Oh.
It's exclusive to windsurf because it uses special windsurf tools for grepping and parallel file reading. Basically, just multi-threaded versions of everything that are high performance. Because basically, we went over from being LLM bound to being IO bound. So then we worked on the IO tools. And then so code maps uses the sort of sweet graph stuff to create maps. It doesn't do any indexing. I don't think it constructs some kind of knowledge graph if that's the question. The idea is literally simulate as close as possible to a human searching and recompiling notes from the code base for you and then annotating it so you can click around and explore the code base and understand hierarchically what are the top level systems and then double click into the second layer, the third layer.
Interesting. Yeah, that's a significant departure, I think, from the approach. So, like, Cursor's new thing is like, hey, you don't actually need to look at your code base. You can just fire off these agents and call it a day, as opposed.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. No, it's about you to look at more code.
Yeah, they have that's their kind of UX revision. I'm sure there's more to it, but at least to me, it's like they're kind of trying to push
I think-
you over in that direction.
Yeah, I mean, to say nice things about Cursor, like they did a very smart thing with this agents versus editor tab, because basically you can have your cake and eat it too. So it's great.
Yeah, no, it's nice, but I feel like, at least to me, and maybe just in the usage of it, I'll find out over time. But the thing that I would like as a part of that is like a click and jump me over to the thing, which I'm not sure if these agents are going to have. My concern is like I'm just going to let these agents like
Yeah, you do it. Try it.
Like
You haven't tried it.
Yeah, like run around basically and
Do like a tic-tac-toe game. I don't know. Do like whatever
Sure,
your
got?
default.
Let me give it a new spot to. Actually, let's see. Yeah. Can you add an activity capability to the bots? I think this is the Discord bot, right? Let's throw a few. If we do 2x composers, we'll see if we can use this work tree here. Like who has their true vodka? Why are we wasting so much cake in philosophy, honestly? To the bot. Okay, let's see if it'll just do that. And then this one's on a different repo. But I do notice that this is pretty speedy, which is I think very. It is. Yeah, I think the like speed versus power paradigm is an interesting one too, because we're kind of getting to that point where like, if you run GLM in BF16 and like you have enough, inference juice to support that, you can oftentimes, at least in my subjective experience, get a lot better. You can get better results with a smaller model that's faster. So now that we're kind of have these models that are not quite flagship scale, but they're like just under that you can soup up like crazily, I think that is, I know, at least for me, it's been like most of the time, it's like I just want the most powerful one because otherwise my agent's going to be dumb and like screw up my whole code base, blah, blah, blah. But now we're kind of getting to the point where it's like, okay, I'm actually kind of willing to make this trade-off sometimes. If I can just like prompt and be like, okay, cool, we have new things now, great. Which in theory we have. Let's see.
Yeah.
Let's see, listening, activity. Oh, did it figure out what activity meant? Okay, so when it does, when the agent summarizes and links me out. Okay. So they do have that level of visibility, at least for changes, as far as I'm seeing. But
Yeah, basically it's just like it's as though you always made PRs, you only made PRs, and then it only shows you diffs, right? So it's not an IDE, it's more like a GitHub PR thing. But then now it's also become like a composer clone, whatever the imbue one is, conductor.
Yep.
Sculptor.
Yeah. That whole Code Layer
Yeah.
2, I think, is an interesting. They're kind of going for the Vim people, but yeah, no, I think it's an interesting sort of space to play around in, but it's super competitive, which is, I guess, a good thing for us, since it'll make it cheaper and better. But yeah, is there
Yeah.
anything that you wanted to like plug or shout out or anything before you skedaddle? I noticed you said you gotta take off, but
No, thanks for checking it out. I got lots of things. Latent Space, AIE, windsurf. Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, Leighton.space/community is where you can find his Discord. And then, yeah, I'm sure if you just Google for Swix or Google for windsurf, the correct things will come up. But yeah, I appreciate you coming by and giving us the lowdown on that one. That's super cool. I appreciate it. Yeah.
All right,
There we go.
guys.
Cool. Cheers.
Thanks for coming through. Oh.
Let's see. Yeah, there's some interesting paradigms that seem to be available now. What does one do when the agent does something dumb and you don't catch it because you're not watching all the output? Is there? Yes, I think actually. Yeah, Al, do you happen to have the pre-recorded demo? Did you record one, or you were gonna avoid one, or I wasn't sure exactly what.
No pre-recorded demo. A little busy this week, but I can show a couple things here. So last week I showed off the Gemini subagents repo that I've been kind of noodling on. This originated because when you were trying to work with Gemini, if you ask it to, like if you're trying to do kind of context engineering stuff where you want to have subagents running in parallel or very well scoped subagents, then Gemini just doesn't let you do that at the moment. So it refuses to use its own CLI, as an example. So this repo gives you a Gemini alias, which supports subagent use and understands how to use that, which I wanted because I've been experimenting with these multi-agent workflows where I get a combination of Haiku for research, Gemini for building kind of a thesis around what's in the code base and how to improve it, and then some amount of kind of sniper tweaks with Haiku again. So what this culminated with is yesterday I broke my computer, which is pretty cool. I've never seen my computer actually turn off because I ran a command, and this time it did turn off. So I tried to run 40 separate Haiku agents in parallel to analyze our entire Git history of all 6 repos that have to do with Tribe to make a dev blog. But it did actually output this huge folder of Markdown files, which are now quickly becoming an automated dev blog for us. But it read all of the files and the entire Git history for each file in parallel. And it took about 5 minutes with like 40 parallel Haiku agents. So the workflow now that I'm adding in is the ability to also add in my Gemini subagents. And what we've been doing with Tribe for a bit is the ability to actually like watch what's going on with that. So you get these kind of, I guess we can do one small demo here, which would be come in here, run Tribe. There's a little callback thing. Go back over here.
Yeah, the reason I asked, as I mentioned over in chat to Brad, because Brad was like, okay, what do you do when the agent does something dumb and you don't catch it because you're not watching? Is there any kind of solution? I think there's multiple solutions, but I think this one is a good one that was missing from the other ones, in my humble opinion. So as you will see, this is a good way to keep an eye on all, if you're gonna run 10 agents in parallel, if you want to use a sculptor or cursor or whatever, it's very hard to keep track of that. So the thought here was like, okay, how do we make that easier? So as you can see, it's been helpful for Al so far, and in theory, I actually threw 4 codexes at it, and then I have a few drafts from Cheetah and stuff too, that in theory should have it processing logs from all of those agents. But yeah, not quite demo tier, but maybe, depending on whether I get those terminal recordings or not.
So this is kind of the bug that I identified, which is Claude consistently thinks that it is using subagents with Haiku 4. But if you see the right-hand side here, the Tribe toolkit that we provide as our CLI shows you the actual agent that's being run based on the logs and telemetry. In this case, it thinks it's using Haiku 4.5, but it's actually using Sonnet 4. Now, it's going to, in a second, start to kick off a whole bunch of command line runs. And so the way it does this is actually runs these commands, Claude -- model. The cool thing about this is I have instructed these agents, the sub-agents in particular, to write to a specific markdown file. So for like kind of agentic research of your code base, especially in like larger code bases, or if you're implementing like a much wider feature that might affect multiple systems, this seems to work really, really well. The goal of the sub-agents is to populate that document with like a full list of all the files that will be affected, line number, and path for each. Once that comes out the other side, then you end up with a whole bunch of these agents just running, which is pretty cool. And it does appear that this is going to probably lag for a second. It actually might be running. So the main trick with this, though, is when these are running in parallel, you start to get a whole bunch of stuff coming back into that document, which then you need to parse with something, which is where the Gemini CLIs kind of come into the workflow, which is this other Gemini sub-agents repo that we're providing. But we're going to start packaging some of these things together. General idea that we've been starting to notice is there's a need for kind of standardizing how you prompt things. Because to Octavia's point about like having basically like a hash map from prompts to outputs, it is really important that the prompts are structured correctly and that like the context information is being passed in properly without also overdoing it. And so the combination of Gemini and Claude Haiku 4.5, and then maybe also this model that Spix was just demoing, it seems to be kind of the way to do this. But the neat thing about this is you can do all of this from command line prompts, and you can have the agents write command line prompts for each other, which seems to be the best way to kind of get them all to share the context management load. That's basically most of it. With the TribeCLI installed, you can kind of start to see some of these running.
Alex, did you just fix context
Can be really helpful.
engineering? Alex, did you context?
A little bit. It seems to be the really efficient way to do it. I ran some pretty big. I've been doing a number of pretty big experiments this way. My limit is probably about 25 parallel haiku agents on my computer, which seems to work quite well. But the main thing with this is that there's almost no context pollution. And the smart agent that's orchestrating things usually doesn't have to think very hard, it seems like. And it typically means that you're really preserving that context window. So you get really targeted good outcomes for almost all the changes. I have run into a couple cases where the research phase didn't go well. If you don't catch that research phase initially, then there's a huge number of problems that can happen. But it's all cited. And the key thing is that the sub-agents have to cite their sources when they go and populate this document.
Yeah, I had one that I had
but
haiku
I'm gonna-
cite a source that didn't exist. Yeah. The other day.
Sorry, what'd you say, X?
I said I had haiku while it was doing research runs cite a line in a file that contained a function that was not the function that it put into the doc. So then we were on a wild goose chase about that function, which only showed up in docs and not files the other day. So yes, the hallucination during research is a real gnarly one, which is why I think the way that you're approaching the problem is. Oh, sorry, you're breaking up a little bit. What you got? Okay. I was not sure. I think a little bit of technical here. I'll fill for you. I have. I think this approach to context management is. I think this is sort of what's hitting on, at least for me, with things like code maps. The idea being, whenever you are working with these models, there is some amount of context window you're going to have to manage. Let's see, we're back. Unfortunately not, I don't think.
Sorry, I have a bunch of killing a couple things.
No worries.
We're getting to
We've reached
see
the
Alex's laptop dying in IRL.
The Mac window manager thing is just horrible. But I think the thought, at least that I'm having, is that, or the way that I think is useful, at least for me, to separate these kinds of things in terms of like, okay, how do you do proper context engineering? Is that if the thing that you want to give yourself, because you are the person who is engineering this context, is multiple levels of zoom, and the thing that you're trying to do there is avoid bottlenecking your agents while also being able to still keep them in line. So if you have, for instance, tribe running on the side, you have all of the terminals up so you can see the moment to moments, and you also have your log on the side, and you also have a code map that you can bounce around between cited references of a thing that you're trying to work on, that you can sort of jump quickly over to verify, I think is a strong, the thing that's interesting to me about a setup like that is that you have the same, effectively the same thing that you want produced out of it, which is which is a file that has the code in it that you want, that works and does what you expect it to do, and then all the ways to get there, you have visibility into each different sort of level of zoom that you would want to look at that stream from to try and interpret it, which I think is, I guess, like philosophically the way that I think is a good way to approach context engineering, and it's super interesting because you can do so much of it in pure markdown files, i.e. like Baco uses just the agents.md. And we have Al, who was running multiple research runs appending to a given document. And then we had me, who failed to click one time because it wasn't easy, and ruined my day.
Yeah, I definitely like had situations where I had to like interrupt cursor mid generation. So I think it's useful to have that context object properly. So
Agree. I wanted to check my little link farm here. Like all the being able to inject nudges. Yeah, that, or like, at least for me, as I am a big proponent of the don't let the human talk to the glorious Chrome god if you can avoid it at all. So things like DSPy, or the sort of like hash mapped sort of prompting kind of technique, are, and then like structuring your context in a way where it's easy for you to see, and then ideally is sort of like self-curating, which is kind of the idea, at least how I think about one of those level of zooms, is like, I want every possible thing that the agent is doing, and then I want to be able to look for patterns in that and kick off, scripts or whatever, based on, pattern, either likelihood or actual occurrence. And I think so I think doing things like looking at your residual stream or your like logs of your agent harness are strong ways to be able to figure out what nudges need to go in when/where. So I think you're kind of on the right track there. There was one other thing that I did want to touch on today. That was I don't know if audience is familiar with it. Does anybody here know what extropic is, or anybody familiar with a person named Beth Bezos? Well, let's see. Make the model stop telling me inquisit. Yeah, I've been trying to get my Claude MD to do that as well. Let's see. Okay, Al, I see you rejoined. Are you back in action? I'll give you a second here to see.
Yeah, apparently the demo was successful in writing a whole bunch of things, but the 25 parallel haiku agents just crashed my computer again.
Yep.
So apparently the limit is slightly below 25. I'm thinking probably about 18. We're going to try 18 later.
Yeah,
We'll see.
dial it in. Yep. No, it checks out to me, absolutely. No, I have the same issue. I am quite interested in that. Yeah, I actually was going to touch on, you have your repo with Gemini. I have a similar thing in principle with with droid exec, and then I found something interesting earlier from Sentry, who is a if you're not familiar with them, they're really good for if you use something like Next.js, because they have a very extensive sort of like error catching sort of platform, if you will, and that platform happens to have an MCP, and the let me see if I can just find it here with a Google Sentry agent MCP. But what they did, interestingly, was let me see if I can grab. I wonder if it'll be in the docs. We'll see. They turned the Sentry MCP, rather than feeding my Claude the entire MCP, they just made the MCP as an agent itself, and the result that they got was in terms of token consumption. If you have an MCP and all that MCP is hey, this is an agent. If you want to use Sentry, ask it about something. So he cut his total tokens down from like 10,000 into 700. And I think doing things like setting up a subagent that does a like droid or codex or whatever exec, or making a skill that calls another CLI agent, this sort of like nested loop, if you will, of agents, I think is a strong, so if you aren't exploring with that, I would recommend doing so to figure out, because there's so many shapes it could go in, but almost all of them are an improvement on the out-of-the-box shapes that you get from all these features.
Yeah, the skills thing seems to be the entry point for this. The key thing is I think a lot of people have been working on orchestrators, but actually the agents are a pretty good orchestrator if you just give them a standard skill set for using their own APIs. So Claude probably writes better prompts than I will, as long as I explain to Claude what I want in those prompts. And in terms of like breaking down the problem into smaller and smaller scope deliverables, it seems to do a very intelligent job, at least with like Opus or Sonnet 4.5, in terms of like identifying what those prompts should be and what context should happen with each agent. But the nice thing about this is that you get all the composability of something like Cursor, but just by using a few different CLI tools in parallel. And so far, it seems to be a lot more precise, because if you just get if you're not using skills to plan all of your subagents, then you are kind of running in a circle, sort of dog chasing your own tail kind of thing. But if you have it kind of composable at the skills level, then you can start to enforce certain things like, where does the output go, or what format should the output be in. And these things can be standardized instead of trying to actually run a bunch of agents yourself, which is pretty cool. That definitely seems like the path towards kind of scalable and context-driven AGI, but more to come. So far, it's just really, really good for analyzing code base and identifying like feature improvements across multiple different files and repos and things like that.
Interesting. When I abstract the LLMs into tools for the orchestrator. Yeah. So like this is sort of there's all kinds of like little patterns that you can find. So I have like my general heuristic of like I don't want humans to prompt the models, and so the little paths that I find of like, oh, let me shortcut this feature by making this other feature use that feature, and like give that to an agent and say like, here you go, use this when you need it, kind of thing. I think is a very, very interesting underexplored area of how these things function. Let's see. There was chat with my. I don't have Sentry set up on the thing. But yeah, it was. Let me see if he mentions. Yeah, so just a sub-agent approach works really well with general goal. See if I can find it here. Yeah, this was the thing that caught my eye. Sentry MCP in agent mode 714, and Sentry previously was 13K. Winner. Yeah, so the I was running into this the other day too. I have a fairly bulky MCP that I'm still somewhat attached to, but I think I'm at the point where I just need to say, hey, like this is a CLI, then wrap anything else that I need in that, in a, something else for the model to use, rather than actually feed it a whole MCP. It's nice to have a standard, but I think the standard sort of lends itself to context bloat, which is like possibly one of the worst things you can do when you're doing code gen with agents. Okay, let me circle back onto my original thing that I started talking about with regard to extropic. If one has not heard of the famed Beth Bezos, he is a bit of a character on the old x.com, the everything app. And his thing that he does is thermodynamic computing, which we have some folks in the server that used to do a probabilistic machine learning book club with. So there might be a few people out there who are sort of familiar with the intimate guts of how these things work. But the big news is he finally shipped some frickin' hardware, which everybody had been extremely skeptical for an extremely long time, and always being bamboozled when he kept getting more funding. Yeah, he actually shipped hardware, actually for real. I'm told from at least one person that's seen the live demo that it is interesting and it works. It's at a scale that is far too small to be useful for anything right now. So provided that the hardware can scale it up, there's some exciting possibilities. I don't think that there's probably going to be a lot of shit posts about this is the new revolution of changing everything, blah, 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 blah. I don't think it's necessarily that, but it should unlock some like extremely powerful angles on particular types of tasks. I know one of the things, at least from the ProbML book club that we were doing, is that these types of thermodynamic computing hardware tend to be very good at diffusion, because essentially the way that they do bit organization is they try to denoise their way into it, essentially. Or rather, I think they use input noise as part of the signal to then like translate that into the qubits. I'm not entirely sure. But the release is, yes, there's an article. There is also an open source repo that goes along with it, which is very cool, which is a JAX library for building and sampling probabilistic graphical models. So not only did they ship hardware, they shipped a little bit of software to go with it. If those kinds of things are like interesting to you, of like weird kinds of computing, at least my personal opinion is that it's worth exploring the topic and looking into it. If it is if it grabs you, then it's worth falling down the rabbit hole. If it's like kind of boring and weird and you don't really like it, I don't think it's the end of the world if you don't pick it up. But I think it is cool that we have this and things like it now to sort of start experimenting in this direction. But yeah, I know that is one of the.
That explains. Is that why Amazon stock went up in the last few days?
Is what?
LDR. Amazon going into edge and semiconductor stuff.
I don't think that would be related to this necessarily, or like I don't think those two things are related to each other. This is a variety of hardware. Also, I think this release was this morning, so it couldn't have been that. But I think it makes sense to be going into edge right now, just because that's where you're going to need to eventually run models. Amazon, yeah, true, because more market volume because of earnings. Yes, that is how that works. Yes, I noticed we are approaching our kind of sort of last 5 minutes here, so I wanted to open it up and see if anybody has had something that they wanted to touch on that they didn't get to, and take a look at chat and see if there's anything else cool that we wanted to hit while we have the opportunity. Cool. I'm down. What do we got? Hello, friend. Something obscure for dev stuff.
Yeah, what's up?
What's up?
Yeah, I met Alex at a meeting last week. It was the shoot, there were so many conferences last week. Thursday or Friday, whatever. Was curious if anyone had been playing with Warp or Zed or any of the other IDEs that have kind of been popping up here and there.
For me, I do use Warp, but I rarely use it for agents, mostly because I don't have a Warp drive set up. So I would have to replicate all my config over to Warp agents, and that sounded like kind of a pain, and they weren't that good anyway.
Yeah, fair.
The Zed is very interesting to me because of a particular article that they posted, which is they want to rethink how version control is being done because it's not built for agents and humans. It's only built for humans. And they have a sort of strong background in being able to do like multiplayer code base editing that doesn't suck, sort of their original pitch.